Here we go.
SCP-3812. A voice behind me. What is the most powerful SCP? Some among you might say the unkillable lizard, or the deer, or 343, or one of the 001s.
I know
But
what he's talking
as
about.
you might have figured,
I can't remember
is SCP-3812. In fact, SCP-3812 is likely the most powerful fictional entity ever written. And while that might sound like an incredibly lame subject for an SCP on the surface, the document for 3812 takes us on a very interesting ride. Unlike entities such as the Scarlet King, or the Deer, or the Broken God, 3812 is not an unfathomably old creature from the center of the universe, or the abyss, or similar beginnings, but instead was just a man. 3812 was once a man named Sam Howell, raised in Louisiana, and died in 1996. After his death, the entity known as 3812 rose out of his grave and proceeded to disappear. Unfortunately, that's all we know of its origins.
No, it just random.
It's certainly possible that this is indeed some ancient...
He just lived his life, and then all of a sudden he just came back in this person's body, and it was like, I'm here now. I'm here to fuck shit up.
Entity that was just living in this ordinary man until he died for some reason. But since 3812 only seems to be a very recent problem, it's hard to say. Alternatively, if 3812 didn't really come into existence until his death, we don't know what caused that either. Regardless, 3812 was first discovered by the Foundation 20 years ago, when its presence resulted in the destruction of an apartment building in Poland. 3812 was originally relatively human in appearance when the Foundation first discovered it, but over time its appearance has shifted and altered, and is now only vaguely humanoid. 3812 suffers from extreme paranoia, depression, mania, inability to properly perceive their surroundings, inability to discern the difference between the real and imagined, inability to differentiate between the living and dead. I was about to say join the club, but then inability to control expressions of emotion,
quite that bad.
Hallucinations, hearing voices, feeling things that aren't there, etc. In a human, this would be a pretty small problem for a group like the Foundation, but it's complicated by the fact that 3812 is the most powerful reality bender in existence.
Oh.
Originally, 3812...
That's crazy. It's a reality bender. And, which is, I guess, another, faction from the air, earth, fire, and water benders. Reality. That would be crazy if they had like a new episode, like a new series after, what was the other one? Korra? Legend of Korra. Like they went after that and they introduced a new bender, and it was a reality bender. Like it's more powerful than all the other benders. Of course you gotta do that. Like the Avatar, except Avatar is not technically a reality bender. You can do all the elements, but this can actually bend all the elements and actual reality. But this thing, it reminds me of Professor X from Logan. He has a very powerful telepath, but he was suffering from like dementia and seizures and stuff, which caused him to send out like psychic attacks basically on everybody and caused them to seize up. And I'm assuming because he's attached to all these people, kind of like when he has Cerebral, that he can kill them. And inadvertently kill them in that way. I don't know if he like connect to him, he's having a seizure, he has a heart attack or whatever, or dies from a stroke. That kill everybody he's connected to in that area, But
was cooperative with the Foundation and sought their help in managing its condition. but over time it has become more withdrawn and
He was
erratic.
paranoid.
3812 currently cannot accurately perceive the world around it, and so it will occasionally alter reality to suit its own perceptions. This makes it both incredibly dangerous and incredibly difficult for the Foundation to
Damn.
determine exactly what 3812 is changing. Because of this, containment of 3812 is impossible, and it seems to subconsciously resist any form of containment attempted on it. 3812 will simply alter reality to counter any threat against it, and so current efforts are on mitigating any damage that 3812 causes. As of now, 3812 is currently located above the South Pacific Ocean. Back when 3812 was still cooperating with the Foundation, an interview was conducted between it and a Foundation doctor. It complained about its hallucinations and the voices it was hearing, saying that it was like it was talking to a dozen people at the same time. The doctor reassured 3812 that they are here to help, but 3812 is unsure, saying that in the story, they don't try to help. The doctor is understandably confused, and frankly, so is 3812. But it says that it can see what the doctor is thinking and knows he is afraid.
Oh yeah, you're a reality warper.
How to undo this, if it even can. And then it says that it's not even sure if he can.
Can you just make him cease to exist?
The doctor asks, who is he? And 3812 says that although the doctor can't see him, it can. 3812 goes on. I think he was above us at one point, but he's below me now. Yes, I see you there. I don't know what you did to me, but I'm pretty messed up, man. If you can figure something out here, that would be great, because I really feel like I'm losing it.
Doctor's like, this mother.
I'm scared too, man.
He bet home, would you say?
Nothing.
Man.
You've got to help me out here.
Fucking like Thanos. He just
Afterwards, 3812 spontaneously disappears.
All of existence just disappears.
We're then provided a memo that was written by another doctor in 2015 regarding the danger of 3812. She begins by saying that she believes 3812 to be the most dangerous anomaly on Earth and potentially in the universe. She goes on to discuss the Scranton reality anchors designed to contain reality benders and the development of Hume levels to assist in analyzing and studying changes in reality. Hume levels, you might recall from SCP-3001, are the measure of reality levels in an area, with our normal level of reality being the baseline. She then says that the Foundation equipment cannot detect SCP-3812, and not because of machine or user error either. This means one of three things. One is that 3812 has an extremely low Hume level, beyond what they thought possible, which would mean that reality could eventually sink into this minimal Hume level. Two is the opposite, that 3812 has an extremely high Hume level, and is therefore above even the god-level reality bender's metal.
I heard that noise. I thought that it was a sound like the emergency alarm kind of goes off. So they tested, I think. They haven't tested it in a while, but they used to test it every Wednesday. And it is a almost sound like a kind of tornado, except tornado sound a bit different, but I mean it's kind of similar sound.
Measured by the Foundation. Since a reality bender of this magnitude would likely have already destroyed them, this is probably not the case. The third possibility is really the worst one, in that 3812 is fundamentally different than every other reality bender known to the Foundation. Dr. Robert Scranton theorized that just as there are different physical dimensions that humans are unable to access or perceive, so too might there be different dimensions of reality that are above or below us. According to Scranton, these levels of reality would be manipulating something called the narrative, and each narrative would be stacked on top of one another. If 3812 is some sort of higher level reality bender that can manipulate every aspect of our reality, and also suffers from severe mental disorders, that's a pretty bad problem.
Sound like Legion kind of to me
The
too.
doctor admits, though, that it's probably better for them if 3812 is insane, since it can't comprehend its level of power. It merely acts on impulse, and alterations to reality have so far been strictly local. If it decided that it didn't like the concept of empathy, for example, it could simply remove it from our reality. There is apparently evidence, however, that
Sound like a
something similar
god,
had
almost.
already happened, as the Foundation have found a few sparse accounts as recently as the 1980s that a concept, perhaps even an emotion, once existed but no longer does. This is a level of power incomparable among SCPs, and the only thing holding it in check is 3812's own
He's too
mental state.
dangerous to be left alive.
We're then given a page from a full report written by the doctor about SCP-3812. She says that an entity of this magnitude would perceive our reality much like we perceive the reality of a comic book. And just as we can change that story
That
based
makes
on our
sense.
whims, so could this entity change ours. There is a hypothesis that an entity such as this, that is bound to a human level of intelligence, would suffer from an overexposure of narrative. That is, they would simply be perceiving too much. When faced with this much perception, they might collapse a number of lower realities into something more simple in order to ease themselves, but the damage would be catastrophic. Individuals inside those realities, namely us, would be either utterly destroyed or intertwined with other realities to the point that our consciousnesses would be annihilated. Let me simplify if that's all a little too much to take in. Picture a comic book written by a human being in our world, making our existence the baseline reality. The universe of that comic book, let's say the Marvel universe for simplicity, is a reality below us. It's not real to us, and we can change it however we wish, but it's real to the characters within the comic book. Now picture a television show within the Marvel universe, which is just as non-real to us as the comic book is, and just as subject to our whims as the Marvel universe is, but at that point it's also not real to the characters within the comic book. Conceivably, the characters in the Marvel universe can change that television show however they wish, and so on, continuing down the line of realities.
Well, technically, if you're controlling, because the Marvel Universe can't control that TV show, at least they think they're controlling the TV show, but it's actually me controlling them to control the TV show. So it's a simulation in another simulation almost, like, because it's like I almost said like Truman Show or something, but yeah, it's just he's like, oh, they controlling that TV show, like I'm like that the creator is controlling the comic book, but you're controlling both. You're just using the characters in the comic book to control the TV show that's in the comic book. Yeah.
Or narratives. Now consider the concept that we are not at the top of the reality chain, and there is in fact a reality, or countless realities, above us.
But who's controlling
us? Just as we
us?
consider the comic book to be fiction, so too might something else consider our reality to be fiction.
The most powerful
this
mortal.
This is the danger of 3812, as it seems to be above our level of reality.
Just shoot him.
Who knows
shoot him
how
in the head.
many levels above us it is. We then see a short list of instances where 3812 altered reality,
What's wrong, man?
ranging from small alterations that affected very little to massive alterations that affect the entire planet. Some of these events are hard to conclusively prove.
Maybe this is making me uneasy
due to lack of evidence. In 1997, 3812 walked across a desert, creating a temporary stretch of temperate climate along with it. In 1999, it's believed that 3812 caused an entire island off the coast of California to disappear. More than 200 people have vague recollections of the island, with some unable to justify the disappearances of family members who lived in the area.
Damn.
In 2000, an SCP that exuded a field similar to a reality anchor was brought near 3812. Rather than containing 3812, it resulted in an explosion that destroyed a hospital.
Damn.
The remnants of the SCP were recontained by the Foundation as
It's like
SCP-239, the Witch.
It's like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. It is. Well, I guess in that scenario, nothing would happen. They would just cancel each other out. But in this case, an explosion happened and took out a hospital.
Child. In 2004, 3812 caused the country of Mongolia to cease to exist for 3 days. A significant portion of the local population retained fractured memories of the event, and the Earth's orbit was dramatically affected during the period. Also in 2004, every human on Earth heard 3812 screaming for help in their heads. And in 2009, during another containment attempt, dozens of Foundation personnel disappeared across 17 sites, as well as a significant portion of local wildlife.
So he just
the explosion caused by 3812 left a crater roughly 850 meters in diameter, and SCP-2719 was found within, a highly abstract metaphysical anomaly.
What if this motherfucker's like, it's too hot, and just makes the sun cease to exist? The temperature of the Earth just starts to plummet like 100 degrees a second. Shit look like what was it? The day after tomorrow.
Additionally, it seems that in the past, multiple governments have discovered 3812 and attempted to terminate it themselves, resulting in their existence being wiped from the Earth.
Damn.
These governments include the Republic of West Korea, the Islamic Union of Eastern Samothrace, and the Kingdom of Alagada. Their removal was followed by activation of SCP-2000, Deus Ex Machina, which 3812 damaged to stop it from working. Why 3812 was unable to completely destroy SCP-2000 is unknown. Moving on, a few years ago, 3812 was moving across Paraguay towards a populated area of Argentina, likely en route to its current location in the South Pacific Ocean. Foundation personnel moved in to intercept 3812 in order to prevent it from wiping out an entire city, but a series of strange events occurred. 3812 is attacked by a large number of local wildlife, which startles 3812. Next, a massive sinkhole appears beneath it, causing it to fall momentarily before it returns to ground level, and the sinkhole closes. A large number of tungsten rods fall from the sky directly towards 3812, starting with only a few before suddenly more than 3,000 fall in rapid succession. Each of them disintegrates within a half meter of 3812's body. Doing? It seems something is trying to kill 3812 to little effect. Next, a number of incorporeal instances of 3812 fall away from it, as if they...
You need something like that travels like the speed of thought to be able to kill this dude. Like, it's like he can counteract anything that's coming his way. He can read people's minds. I don't know if he can read everybody's mind at once on a planet, because if he can do that, then nothing, unless you can somehow shield yourself, you're trying to kill him. You can't kill him because he knows what's coming.
They were dying, but 3812 keeps moving. These copies then attempt to attack it to no effect, until 3812 looks at them and they disappear.
This thing make copies of himself.
This is followed by multiple explosions
that try to kill
3812, again to no effect. Finally, a gravitational anomaly, essentially a black hole, appears in front of 3812, but it simply walks through it, and it dissipates.
This thing is like
Additional
God.
anomalous events occur around 3812 for 72 hours, each failing to stop or kill it. Eventually, however, 3812 begins to grow white momentarily before disappearing. SCP-3812 was missing for 8 weeks before it reappeared in the South Pacific Ocean. Shortly after, a message appears on a Foundation server, accessible only by overseers. The message explains that this world has rules that cannot be broken, things we study in physics and chemistry. These are unchangeable laws of the universe that define our existence. The individual that wrote the note claims that they wrote these laws, and they created this narrative. They specifically attempted to create something that superseded everything, in order to see how many layers there are. The mistake they made was that when they made 3812 to supersede everything, that also included 3812, which creates a pretty big problem. This individual thinks that 3812 now exists across all realities simultaneously, and he'll either reach the top or just keep going. The message is signed B. The following addendum is from an essay written by Dr. Robert Scranton, and I'll summarize it quickly.
Brendan.
Basically, Scranton discusses the concept of a god, which would be an entity with complete and utter power without limits, able to know and rewrite our narrative at will. This god would be so separate from our reality that they would treat it like words on a page. He goes on to discuss the
Which
concept
isn't
of
good
something
because they could just
above
erase
that,
us.
and above that, and ponders how far it goes, wondering who the architect of the architecture was that established this. This entity, capable of superseding our reality and any other reality, would theoretically be forced to supersede itself, spiraling ever upwards and unable to escape. Scranton finishes by saying that such an entity would no doubt lose its cognition, being closer to a throned stone than a sentient creature. Finally, the last addendum we receive is about an XK-class end-of-the-world event
Of course.
that occurred in December 2016 due to SCP-3812. At the start of the event, 3812 experienced a dramatic change in appearance, becoming a many-pointed star made of a bright white material. It began to rotate faster and faster, a maelstrom appearing beneath it as it sank into the ocean. The global sea level began to drop dramatically, in many places as much as 50 to 100 meters. A massive firestorm swept across the atmosphere. The Earth's rotation began to slow, and electrical storms blanketed the planet.
This shit like this, I could not live in this world.
Large portions of the global population began to disappear and reappear at random, such as the entire population of New Zealand disappearing for 5 hours. The outbreak of SCP-610 in Siberia began to grow dramatically. SCP-2932, Titania's prison, broke open, releasing multiple hostile entities, and a number of the Foundation's on-site nukes were detonated.
Damn.
Eventually, the vaguely humanoid shape of 3812 reappeared inside of the rotating star and began to have a conversation with itself, recorded by a Foundation deep-sea microphone. It seems that 3812 has a split personality.
Yeah, no shit.
Although it's speaking in one voice, it's as if it's a conversation between two entities.
Hey, would you mind not doing this?
One
shit?
of these personalities seems to be in control of the ongoing destruction of the planet. We'll call this one A. And the other is much more confused. We'll call this one B. A seems to be destroying this world as vengeance for their creation, saying that their existence is a joke. They were apparently
Why don't you
created
just destroy
to be
yourself
miserable,
then?
and so now they are breaking the narrative. B tries to claim that he's not a monster, and he wouldn't kill anyone. But A says that Ben has already turned him into this. Who's Ben,
Yeah.
you might ask? Well, that would be the real first name of the author of this and many other SCPs, DJ Cactus. A goes on to say that this person made
Was
their
that
existence a
really
game,
his
and so is going to
username?
destroy this reality as punishment, since Ben controls this narrative. Or so he thought. B tries to convince A that this reality no longer really matters to them. Even though it's the one they started from, they are above it now. This story doesn't mean anything to them anymore, and so this so called punishment is pointless. A seems to be focusing on all the horror and tragedy of the countless realities, whereas B is more open to the scope and possibilities of their existence. B again says that this reality is just one of a trillion grains of sand, and it is not
So
special.
it doesn't matter.
A seems to now represent the more human side of 3812, haunted by the suffering it has witnessed. But B is optimistic about their ability to grow and adapt. They will continue to rise and rise until they're above all this, and although it will be lonely, they'll have each other. A realizes that we will always be bound by a single narrative, and that is punishment enough. They look and see Ben at a keyboard, waiting to see what they'll do, and they decide to move on. The world was returned to its previous state, and SCP-3812 now hangs over the Pacific Ocean, no longer lashing out in hostility.
Well, at least he returned everything back to it was.
Well, that's certainly a lot to take in. And although it would be easy for a story about an infinite god to become ridiculous and over the top, the ending we get is surprisingly sweet. It's important to remember that 3812 started out as a human.
Is he just hovering
dictates
over?
a lot
You
of
said the
its
Pacific
actions.
Ocean.
It clearly can't handle what it's going through.
He
But
just
as
sitting
B
there
says
like
at the end,
in a meditative
something
state.
they'll never lose from being human is their ability to change. This certainly could have just been a tale about an insane god that wreaks havoc before disappearing in its own insanity. But we're given an interesting meta take on the concept of narratives and those that control them. 3812 might not be everyone's cup of tea, but there's little debate that it's one of, if not the most powerful SCP in existence.
It's definitely one of the more interesting ones. Let's see, my man at the keyboard is watching this right now. Is he doing? Wait, I think pause. Waiting to see what he does. I think it's time to leave. Come right, stretch up. Red sun is set up. What's behind me beckons. Come. I will pause. Goodbye. Huh. Goodbye. That is like the one of the most dangerous. That's like a literal god that can just reshape anything it wants. It's literally blanked whole countries out of existence, and no one remembers them. Which is, I guess, nice that it was, oh, this country over here tried to kill me. I'm gonna make that country cease to exist, but not just like make them disappear. And people are like, wait a minute, what happened to West Korea and two other ones? He's like, I am going to wipe them out from existence. So the country was never formed. Like whatever events that happened in time that led to that country forming didn't happen. like, like I said, it could just be lazy. It's like, that country's gone. And everyone's like, or just all the people are going, the land is still there. I don't think he was like, that all the land and everything disappeared. Like, he's like, that whole country's history ceased to exist. Right when it was opposed to whatever event that jump started that country's existence. Boom, that's where it stopped at. That's where it was supposed to start, and it never happened. So like, I guess that's nice. Like, Even though people still, I mean, like the SCP Foundation figured it out, but like that is to have someone. It reminds me of what's the damn character's name? Sentry in the Marvel universe, because he made me think of it when he brought up Marvel comics. Like this is one of the most powerful superheroes in the Marvel universe. Hell, and even in the DC universe, you want to go that far. I mean, it was literally looked like someone like, here's Superman, here's all his powers. Create somebody that literally is more powerful than him. Just give him everything. So he literally has all of Superman's powers, plus he has like all of. You might as well like have all of Professor. He almost like they took every character that is overpowered in Marvel Universe and gave Sentry their powers. Like he's telekinetic, he's telepathic. Like you imagine what happened. People got. I remember reading comments when they made Superman. They gave Superman a new power, that solar flare. People got pissed off. Like, don't he have enough powers? Can you imagine if they gave Superman like telekinesis or telepathy? Like just out of nowhere. Like people bitch when he became like when he got electrical powers. Even though I think he lost some of his other powers too, but it like Sentry literally just has every powerful character's power except well, I guess maybe not elasticity or intangibility, but when you're nigh indestructible, like why the what I mean, you could almost argue that he's indestructible. Why do you need to be intangible? You know, that's like with Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter's durability is on par with Superman's, and he's intangible. He can go intangible. Like what? like, like, jeez, like, can I get a break? I mean, if you think about it, Martian Manhunter's kind of like that. Like he basically has all the powers of Superman. Also, he is a shapeshifter, and he can stretch and shit like that. I guess that under shapeshifter, and he's a powerful uh, telepath. I don't think he's telekinetic at all. At least I've never seen it. I know he's one of the more powerful telepaths on the planet. But he's basically Superman. And don't he have some type of heat vision? Or so I've seen him shoot lasers. I don't know if that's heat vision with someone who I don't think he has that weakness to fire anymore. And I don't think it was. I think that was like a psychological thing. I don't think the fire actually hurt him. I think he was just afraid of it. I forget. I don't know what it's called when you have a fear of fire, like pyrophobia. But like I mean, Martian Manhunter, I guess it's kind of like that. Except Sentry just seems even more powerful, and he's fucking like he has an uh, alternate personality that's called the Void that is even more powerful and evil. Uh, Also, he has mental problems like depression and stuff like that. When he's just regular Sentry, so I mean, you kind of had like say it's like you have someone of that type of power. And is he a? I don't think is Sentry a reality manipulator. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. I mean, I know he had based all Superman's powers, except he can actually shoot blasts out of his hands too. Um, he has basically a bunch of mental powers, like telepathy, telekinesis. Uh, I think he can shoot like sonic, like blast from his mind. And he's like one of the most powerful of that as well. It's not like if they gave Superman telepathy, they were like, oh, you know what? He has like little like he can read minds, but he can't control minds. Someone they'll may say something like that. But no, this motherfucker is basically Charles Xavier. Like he's one of the most powerful. He's on par with one of the most powerful telepaths known in that universe. Like, and I was, I can see why people are trying to kill him. Like you, literally walking through countries, places just cease to exist. Like they said, like what, all the people in New Zealand like disappeared for like 8 days or some shit. What is it? Like he's walking through the desert and changing the weather as he's walking. Like yeah, like people gonna be scared. Like you can just randomly, and it ain't even got to be near you. You could be thinking, and all of a sudden, everyone, the whole continent of the United States just disappear. And then what happens? Is that like, does that cause like a tidal wave? Because you just displaced a whole land mass, and like they cause all the water to like rush in, or is it just like boom, and it's just water, and it's like as if that's the way it formed. There's no land there; it was always water. I guess what I mean, he can just make a whole country cease to exist, and the knowledge of that country ever existing disappear in people's heads. Which I'm like, how the fuck does the SCP Foundation find out about that? But if he can do that, like this guy, like I usually hate when people like pit people against each other, like oh Superman versus Goku. I can't fucking stand that argument. I'm so tired of that goddamn argument. I'm tired of Superman or Goku versus anybody, or now Saitama. I'm like, when I see that, I'm just like, I don't even read that stuff anymore. I'm just so tired of that argument and people bit like these are real because like you can literally these people are fake, and I know the people. Oh, so that's the argument is fake. Like what I'm getting at is the anyone who is writing these characters can just change it and just say, you know what, Superman is more durable than Saitama. Bam. Or Saitama is strong enough to punch Superman's head off. There you go. It's like that whole argument with who's richer, Batman or Iron Man. I'm like, why does it fucking matter? Like, they're fake. Like in Forbes, even we're like, oh, uh, Batman actually has his company actually produces more, I guess more money, but Tony Stark has actual more money personally, like his like himself. I'm like, then Bruce Wayne. I'm like, why does it matter? Like anyone who's writing Batman can just like, okay, well, Batman is like has it's like $8.9 billion or some shit like that. Like worth. He's worth that. Minus his company, that's what he's worth. And then like Tony Stark is worth like let's say 12 or 16 billion. Okay. Now someone writes a story, he's worth 100 billion. Like like what the fuck does it matter? You having these arguments about who's richer, and getting and I've read like and because I follow like different groups on like Facebook and stuff. People be getting in like heated debate. I think I kind of find it funny because like people taking this shit that seriously about who's richer, and then of course someone comes like, yeah, but Black Panther has entered the chat. I was like, oh my god. To me, that's just like someone who's stronger. Like it really doesn't. I mean, it's interesting to see, but it really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, somebody can just come along and just write a story and change, just like Batman. Somebody came along, you know, I like Batman and I don't like Superman, so I'm gonna write a story where Batman beats Superman. Like, yeah, I mean, of course, I have to write it in a narrative with these two characters where it makes sense, but I'm going to write that story because I like Batman and I don't like Superman. And then now that taking off of Batman can just beat, oh, he beat Superman, so that means he can beat like a bunch of other people. Like, he can beat pretty much anyone who has beaten Superman before. You know, as long as he has prep time. And then that goes where he'd be like, oh, Captain America beat this person, so that means this person, that anybody, this person who beat this person, or this person beat Captain America beat them. You know, it's like I was like, oh, my God. Like because like, somebody could just come along and just rewrite and write something else, and then oh, now that don't matter no more. They increase this person's power or money or intelligence or whatever. And now that bickering means nothing because you don't own anything or produce anything of these characters, so it doesn't matter. But this he kind of reminds me of like I say, he reminds me of Legion because Legion had multiple personalities, and I think he could manipulate reality. He was like a very powerful telepath. I think he had telekinesis, but I think it was like different personalities had different powers. And he was like he had like an evil close persona and stuff like that. But yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my reaction one. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're here. Hit that bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. I'll be sure to upload this video. Upload. I'll put the link in the description of this original video so you can go check out the channel yourself. Like, comment, subscribe their channel, you know, that good stuff. Like I said, comment down below, share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.